Hey guys, welcome to another Trade Genius podcast. Bob and Phil here. As always, guys, we're going to talk Bitcoin and Bitcoin miners in this video. A lot of volatility, a lot of big moves, and we're going to tell you how the charts look from here. Let's dive in.
Trade Genius.
Okay, Bob, I know you guys in the stock trading room have been enjoying the Bitcoin miners. They've been really volatile, maybe some of the most volatile stocks we've seen in the last couple of quarters. So what do you see going forward here on the miners?
Yeah, I mean, it's been really interesting that, first of all, they look like they didn't want to play ball with Bitcoin. And the next thing you know, it's somebody just lit a fire underneath them and then they just took off. But one of the things that we like to do, Phil, and before we get to that too, you want to throw out some of the attaboys here. We had a really good week. It was really interesting. We love volatility. I think this one's, and you were sick and you were getting these attaboys. You took one for the team here. So, we kind of help people Wednesday. And then on Wednesday night at the close, you said, hey, we may get follow through or they may just lift this thing right back up because we hit support. That's one of the things we do help in the room. We kind of give you guys a daily macro view of opportunities in the market. And, you like to focus on futures and Bitcoin. I like to focus on stocks and options. And then if you just flip to the next one here, I was begging people to buy the shippers. And people that had them were getting stopped out of some of the trades because they're pushing it down. And I'm saying, guys, this war, this thing in the Red Sea, they're not accounting for it. And we just had an absolute rocket ship on everything. I mean, we have some of these shippers are up 50, 70%. A lot of them are up double digit in a week or so. I don't think the move's done yet. And somebody's just calling us out on it. A new person too, actually, just thanking us for getting them on the right side. So the kind of things that we do here, we're very active in the trading rooms. I think we're probably one of the few people with a trading service that we're this engaged, with what we do. And I don't think people are as broad as we are. People specialize in certain things, but, we have really good algorithms and the asset class doesn't matter to us, because they're built on momentum and price action and psychology, Phil. So let's throw this chart up here real quick. There's Bitcoin Mara, and this is important because I have a dog in this hunt too. So I'm loaded up on Wolf. A lot of guys are loaded up on Mara. Some people were getting a little nervous and they're starting to sell calls against their position. And I just, right before the close, somebody asked me, Bob, should I be selling my Clean Spark and my Wolf? And I said, we'll take a look at it Tuesday, but it prompted me to throw together these charts and let everybody kind of know where, because I'm getting a little bit antsy too. And it's kind of wanted to let my winners run here, but we're right up against the wall here. And for me, I'm looking at your stuff, but I'm going to throw my chart up where I can see it personally so I can get a better view of this. Is that you got Bitcoin Mara here, if you look at it, is that whenever it's at the bottom of the channel there, you want to be buying, Mara in relation to Bitcoin. So the first thing you need to do is you got to make sure Bitcoin is in a proper, uptrend, number one. And this is a weekly chart. I just wanted to show you just for view purposes how overbought this is right now. But if you want to trade it, you want to make sure Bitcoin's trending up. And then you look at Bitcoin versus Mara and your entry points are at the bottom of that range. And if you see where the green squiggly line is shaded and then the pink on top, that's 1.5 to 2.3 standard deviations of the 21-day moving average. I like to use 21 days as a reference point for almost everything I do, and our algorithms are built on looking back 20 and 21 trading periods. And here you're looking at a move that has basically bottomed out in September, had a few more weeks of down move, and then it just literally exploded to the top. And my view, Phil, is that this move, unless Bitcoin really takes off, is that I think the Bitcoin Mara ratio is telling us this is a good place to take some profit. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so too. You're going back into basically the top or the upper end of the range down here, right? And so you're already getting into the overbought side of the technicals. And again, this is a BTC Mara ratio chart. So when they start to get up into this realm in the ratio, it's telling you that Mara is getting expensive in terms of where Bitcoin is trading. They've been really volatile. They've gotten like expensive and then really cheap and then expensive again. And so, and I just think this is kind of flowing with the year-end stuff, wherein that you're going to basically have those flows that are coming in from the year gains and from the first of the year flow. And that kind of starts to taper off after the first week of January. And I think that's going to also cool this move move off quite a bit. And then as we know, the flows are looking like they're going to go kind of negative in the back half of January, and seasonally things tend to go down into March. So I think, if you're long this trade, you're absolutely right. You'd be looking to sell into the strength, scale out here. You don't have to sell it all here, but it certainly could poke its head higher a little bit. But I do think the days are numbered on that move.
Yeah, I mean, look, Mars up 300% and
Yeah.
Bitcoin up 10%. So, usually you have a 6-to-1 kind of ratio here. This is like ridiculous. You're looking at probably 30-to-1 right now.
Yeah.
So the moves, somebody definitely got caught offside here, but it's at $27 on a close here. Wolf's up over 215 again. And I know people are holding out to break back even again, but you don't want to get caught back in a downdraft again when we move into the low liquidity movement in February and March. And Phil, you have some charts on Bitcoin you want to show, I think.
Yeah, so then it's, what is Bitcoin doing? Because that's going to drive these miners and what they do. And remember, the miners overperform and underperforms. Well, Bitcoin pulls back, you're going to get another cycle like what you saw previously there, where it kind of Eiffel Towers back down. So we just could be in quite a whippy, volatile relationship with miners. So if we look at the Bitcoin chart, I'm going to take you guys into my VWAP chart here. This is basically mapping out the quarterly VWAP. So every quarter, you have your VWAP level for the quarter, and you also have your standard deviation range around that. And, typically the algos tend to respect those levels.
Hey, buddy, it's Bob with Trade Genius. Hey, it is holiday season, and our holiday specials are running right now. Just promo code HOLIDAY. You already blew it. You missed the Black Friday specials, but this is your second chance to take advantage of some of the best pricing that we do for the year. Check us out, tradelikeagenius.com, tradegenius.co, tradegeniusacademy.com. All roads lead to Trade Genius. Check us out, and the specials run till Christmas Day, so don't forget to take advantage of it. Incredible deals. Thanks for listening.
What I have here as well is I've also shown and drawn with a rectangle kind of the 3-day supply, I call it, where it's where the previous highs in the chart broke. You basically had a 3-day opposing green candle and then a breakdown. And typically those opposing areas turn into resistance as you come back up and retest them. So these are the areas on the way down. We came up and we battled this one for quite some time under 31K, and then we finally broke out over it. And, this was just a move with no pullback. Basically, we came into this other supply block, that was back from May of 2022. We hit our head on that for a little bit, and then we broke through that and no pullback there, and then just absolutely squeezed. And now we're in this upper 3-day supply zone, and again we're hitting our head on that as well. And these have also been kind of coinciding with quarterly range highs from the previous quarter VWAP levels. So the algos have definitely been respecting that. And currently, if we zoom in here a little bit, we can see that we're, every time we poke our head above this level here around 44, we had that initial push into 45. Most are expecting some kind of retest. One thing I will tell you guys is that when we are potentially looking for tops in Bitcoin, now everybody thinks, I think the majority are looking at 48. And, if you do get 48, you're kind of taking, like, the thought here would be that you take out the high here that's at 48 too. But, these areas of supply, they can tend to stop moves. And so if it's not going to, then what we should probably end up seeing is a very strong candle over the course of a day or two or three that push up into this, and there's no wicks, okay? Because where we run into problems if we start seeing wicks, which we're seeing here. The other thing here is that if you look on like the daily on this stuff, if you look at how Bitcoin typically tops out, right? You're going to get these attempts at a top with Eiffel Tower moves like this, right? So on our first major high, we had what we call a triple top or triple peaks, right? And then you break the trend line on that, and then you get a lower high and then lower. So typically you look for an opportunity where Bitcoin may be doing that type of price action with that Eiffel Tower and then a lower high. Here you have like that same thing, Eiffel Tower and then lower high and then down. Here you had an Eiffel Tower, not really a lower high. This was a candidate for a lower high, and then they broke back above it. Then you had Eiffel Tower again and a lower high, and then that finally did it. So whenever we get to big reference areas, that's where you want to look for a potential lower high setting up. And so the big reference here is going to be when you look at it in terms of the cycle, right? So this is Bitcoin cycles, and you have your halving, your post-halving moves, and then your peaks and your troughs, right? We're all accustomed to that now. When you get your peak to trough move, which we've gotten, you'll notice that as you get back up to the 50% area of that, the 50 to the 618, right? That's your typical golden zone, right? For fib retracements. Back here, 2011 to 2012, we didn't even get to 50% before we saw like some resistance and a pullback. And then finally we we busted through it in 2019. If you guys remember, there was that Chinese like Ponzi that gave us that run up, and then we hit our head on the 618 and rejected through that. Or excuse me, this is 2016. Sorry, 2016. 2019 over here was a Chinese Ponzi. But again, you hit the 50 to 618 pullback, 50 to 618, bigger pullback that ended up having that black swan of COVID, basically, right? Otherwise, we probably would have stayed around 7K, I would guess, and then then kind of the natural cycle move played out after that. Exasperated by a lot of Fed printing too. So we had a very, very steep move after that. But again, here we are now in this cycle, and we're getting back into that zone. So the question is, are we going to see? Does it peter out here, or do we get that move into that 618, which takes care of that 48 level? And we have a big news item of the ETF, right? So that's where we're kind of at. Is the ETF going to be the sell the news event, or a lot of people think the minute the ETF's announced, all this money is going to pour in. I don't, typically that's not how it works, and I think you have to respect the fact that seasonalities are going to probably have us pull back. So I think timing wise, this going into January, and then a pullback from a pretty typical level where you would expect a noticeable pullback on a weekly chart, let's say, I think this is most likely what's setting up. And if you look at this is the Bitcoin futures chart, we have a couple of gaps too that are in vicinity. We have one that was from Monday, the weekend last December 11th. So, a couple weeks ago almost, we had a gap that was down, and we filled half of it overnight. That's actually kind of standard. You'll get these half gap fills, and then so we've pulled back to that. This is just a 55 EMA on the chart here. But basically, we have this little zone here of support and resistance. So if for some reason we start breaking down, and this is the Santa Rally's time zone, right? The quote unquote Santa Rally, which is supposed to last us into January 2nd. 80% of the time the market's up. Equity markets are typically up 1.3%, something like that. So there's going to be the expectation that this stays up. But if we start cracking below the support area, which essentially would be about 43K on spot Bitcoin, then you have to watch for this to open back up below here. So going into the holiday weeks that we have ahead of us here next week, and then that first weekend in January, we could be stuck in some range rotation here. But essentially that's what we're looking at. And a little birdie told me that there is a potential that we may get an ETF approval during one of the holiday weeks. And if we do, that's going to be a time of low liquidity. So we could get some serious volatility if that does occur. So keep an eye, your ears peeled over the next couple of weeks if that happens. It would be a very illiquid time for that to happen. And if it is a sell the news event, you could have a pretty violent reaction. So just keep an eye on that. But that's basically what I'm looking at here, big picture, and more shorter term stuff too here for Bitcoin. So again, it's kind of level by level. Below 43K, I think it opens up for a move down. And we're talking, from the next day, a couple of days to the next week. But if it starts to break above and you start getting a push over, 44,500, you're looking for this gap to fill. And then we could potentially get a squeeze up. And then we do go after that 48.5K level.
Hey guys, Merry Christmas. Glad you're feeling better, Phil. Check us out in the room, tradelikeagenius.com. And I really appreciate all the support you guys have shown us this year. And hopefully we'll have a pretty interesting 2024. I think our plan is, Phil, I think right now we're still planning on doing a video tomorrow. And then we're going to be back at you then on Tuesday. And we'll be Tuesday through Saturday for some videos. It's holiday trading. We're bored out of our minds. So, we'll be hunting for content. But next week could get pretty interesting depending on how Santa may want to show up. A lot of times people don't realize, I think Christmas and New Year break is quiet. Sometimes it can be pretty violent. And so as people position for next year. So we'll be there watching it and hopefully profiting from it. So with that, Phil, let's let them go for the day.
See you.
Trade Genius.